This is the Quantum Space Podcast, Innovating Trust, Episode 9, A Cryptopocalypse in Brussels? I'm your host, Anna Keller, and today, we're unpacking one of the biggest strategic challenges Europe's digital future has ever faced: how to stay secure, sovereign, and competitive in the age of quantum computing. My guest today is Steve Atkins, publisher and editor of The Quantum Space and co-author of the new whitepaper Sovereign by Design: How Europe Can Secure Its Digital Future in the Post-Quantum Age. Steve also served as moderator of the Inno Days Roundtable, hosted by Wibu-Systems, a session that brought together experts from the Karlsruhe Institute of Technology, SAP, Infineon Technologies, and Wibu-Systems itself to discuss how Europe can harden its digital foundations against the quantum threat. Steve, welcome back.
Thanks, Anna. Pleasure to be here, and I'm glad we're talking about this one because the cryptopocalypse is closer than people realize. And this white paper was our way of getting that message out of the technical echo chamber and onto executive desks.
Before we get into the details, let's start with how Sovereign by Design came about. This was very much a joint effort between the Quantum Space and Wibu-Systems.
Absolutely. The collaboration grew quite organically. Wibu-Systems had hosted its Inno Days event in Karlsruhe, which included this incredibly rich expert roundtable on quantum computing and digital sovereignty. Daniela Prevatali from Wibu and I realized afterward that the conversation had to live beyond that room. It needed to be written down somehow. So we decided to capture it as a structured, European-centric narrative. Wibu brought the deep technical expertise in post-quantum software protection. They're right in the middle of that shift with their CodeMeter platform, and the Quantum Space brought the editorial framework, the policy context, the regulatory links, the voice that connects companies and policymakers. We spent months shaping it: interviews, transcripts, editorial refinements, to make it not just a report, but a kind of blueprint for how Europe can navigate the post-quantum transition.
So it's both analytical and conversational?
Exactly. It's structured like a report, but with human texture. The first two parts lay the foundation, the cryptographic reality check and Europe's sovereignty dilemma, and the third part is the live roundtable conversation itself, edited for clarity but kept real.
Let's go through it in order then. The first section, The Coming Cryptographic Shift, starts with the idea that we're living through a quiet revolution. What do you mean by that?
Well, cryptography is one of those invisible technologies people don't think about. It's just there. It protects your online banking, your VPNs, your medical records, but it's built on mathematical assumptions that quantum computers can break. The white paper describes it as a quiet revolution because this is a systemic threat, not a headline-grabbing one. Nothing explodes. Instead, one day you discover that RSA and ECC, the two cryptographic pillars of the last 40 years, are no longer safe. And once that happens, every certificate, every secure boot chain, every software update pipeline becomes vulnerable.
So this is where the phrase "harvest now, decrypt later" comes in, which sounds a bit like a spy novel, but it's real.
It's very real. Think of it this way. Attackers are stealing encrypted data now, state secrets, intellectual property, financial archives, because they expect to decrypt it later when quantum machines catch up. So if your data needs to stay confidential for 10 years or more, you've already got a quantum problem today. That's the heart of part one, understanding that migration isn't about tomorrow's machines, it's about today's risk horizon.
And how is Europe responding to that?
We're actually ahead of most regions in terms of coordinated planning. The European Commission published a coordinated implementation roadmap for post-quantum cryptography in June 2025. It sets hard milestones. By the end of 2026, every member state must have a national PQC roadmap and pilots underway. By 2030, high-risk systems, critical infrastructure, government networks, defense, banking must be migrated. By 2035, everything of medium risk should follow. So the clock is already running.
And this aligns with what's happening in the US, right?
Yeah. The US's National Institute of Standards and Technology finalized its first 3 PQC standards in August 2024, ML-Chem for key exchange, ML-DSA for digital signatures, and SLH-DSA for hash-based signatures. Those are now official FIPS standards. That means the technology is no longer experimental. It's real, tested, and ready for adoption.
One line that stood out to me in the paper is, "You don't need a crystal ball, you need a Gantt chart."
That's my favorite line too. It's basically saying, Stop debating when quantum computers will arrive. Start planning your migration timeline. PQC migration is like a giant renovation project. It touches everything from firmware to cloud keys. The white paper breaks down what a good plan looks like. Governance first, then crypto inventories, dependency mapping, pilot hybrids, and regulatory alignment. This isn't a patch, it's a multi-year transformation program. It's real, tested, and ready for adoption.
And you also describe something called the brownfield reality.
Right, that's the engineer's pain point. Most of our systems aren't clean slates. They're brownfields, layers of legacy hardware, protocols, and vendor dependencies. So PQC migration means threading new algorithms through all of that without breaking things. And for embedded devices, medical, automotive, industrial, you can't just push an update. You need recertification, new HSMs, new trust anchors. That's why Europe's regulatory approach, especially the Cyber Resilience Act, is so important. It forces updatability by design.
The white paper also talks about the business case, that being PQC ready isn't just compliance, it's competitive advantage.
Yes, because procurement teams are already asking about it. Public tenders, critical infrastructure contracts, they're starting to include PQC ready as a differentiator. So companies that start early not only de-risk themselves, they signal maturity. And frankly, they'll win business because of it.
Let's move to part 2. Europe's digital sovereignty between regulation and innovation. This chapter zooms out to the geopolitical layer. What's Europe's big challenge here?
Europe's challenge is balance. We're a regulatory superpower GDPR, the Digital Markets Act, the AI Act, all global benchmarks. But we don't yet have the industrial muscle to match. Digital sovereignty is about control, not isolation, but control over your critical systems, chips, standards, and data flows. The report calls this trusted independence. You don't have to make every chip in Europe, but you do need to control the rules under which those chips operate.
And regulation is how Brussels exerts that control.
Exactly. Europe governs with code made of law. The Cyber Resilience Act, NIS2, the Digital Operational Resilience Act, the AI Act, EDAS2, they form what I call the sovereignty stack. It's an enormous legal scaffold, ensuring that any product with digital elements must be secure, updatable, and transparent. But that strength can also be a constraint. The white paper calls it the shield that can become a cage. If regulation outpaces innovation, SMEs suffocate under compliance.
And SMEs are where most of the innovation actually happens.
Correct. The paper refers to this as the sovereignty gap. Big corporations can afford to comply with the Digital Operational Resilience Act or the Cyber Resilience Act. Smaller ones can't. So we argue for shared certification labs, funded compliance frameworks, and harmonized EU-wide standards to avoid fragmentation. If sovereignty only works for Siemens and SAP, then it's not sovereignty, it's exclusivity.
You also discuss Europe's major strategic investments, the CHIPS Act, Gaia-X, Euro QCI.
Yes. These are the muscle behind the law. The €43 billion CHIPS Act aims to double Europe's share of semiconductor production by 2030. Gaia-X is about data sovereignty federated cloud infrastructure. And Euro QCI, the European Quantum Communication Infrastructure, is building a secure quantum-resistant communications backbone. So sovereignty isn't just about writing rules. It's about building capacity, physical and digital.
And you contrast Europe's model with the US and China.
Well, the US model is innovation first, regulation later. China's is sovereignty through control. Europe's is sovereignty through regulation. Each has trade-offs. Europe exports its values globally, the so-called Brussels effect. But we risk becoming a rulemaker who can't build the rules into our own hardware. The paper ends that section with a great line. Sovereignty is not defensive, it's a brand. If we get it right, made in Europe can mean secure, ethical, and quantum ready.
That brings us to part 3, the roundtable discussion at Wibu-Systems Inno Days. You were the moderator for that session. What made it unique?
It was a rare mix of perspectives. You had academia, enterprise software, semiconductors, and licensing. And everyone was brutally honest. Professor Jorn Muller-Quade from KIT warned that quantum computers powerful enough to break RSA might still be 10-15 years away. But that's close enough to be a policy problem now. Detlef Hudo from Infineon explained how the semiconductor industry is trying to bake PQC accelerators directly into chips running old and new crypto side by side. And Oliver Winsenreid from Wibu-Systems emphasized that software protection and licensing are part of Europe's sovereignty equation. If you can't protect your intellectual property or license your code securely, your innovation economy collapses.
It's interesting to hear that licensing came up as a sovereignty issue.
Yes, because secure licensing is economic sovereignty. It's how you ensure that your digital assets can't be cloned, pirated, or manipulated. SAP's Thomas Deppeweg put it beautifully. Entitlement management is the economic grammar of the digital world. It's who has the right to do what, when, and how. Combine that with Wibu's code meter, and you have a trustworthy, quantum-safe rights framework for the entire digital economy. That's sovereignty in practice, not in theory.
What was the mood in the room? Optimistic or anxious?
Cautiously optimistic. There was realism about timelines. Migration will take years, but a shared sense that Europe has the ingredients to succeed. World-class research, regulatory clarity, and a common purpose. The roundtable transcript that's included in the white paper captures that dynamic. It's frank, technical, but hopeful.
So, stepping back, what does sovereign by design add to the larger European debate?
I think it reframes quantum migration as a sovereignty issue, not just a cybersecurity one. It says, this isn't about abstract math. It's about Europe's ability to secure its economy, its citizens, and its industrial base on its own terms. It also highlights collaboration between public and private sectors, between research and regulation. That's the European way, and it's what will make the difference.
And your own takeaway from writing and editing it with Wibu-Systems?
That partnership matters more than technology. Wibu brought industrial realism, decades of experience in secure licensing. We brought cross-sector editorial synthesis. Together, we could connect the cryptography labs to the boardroom conversation. It was a reminder that sovereignty is something you build collaboratively, not decree from a podium.
That's a powerful line. Sovereignty as something you build, not declare.
Exactly. It's like cryptography itself. You don't promise trust, you engineer it.
So what happens next?
Well, for the quantum space, this is the fourth in an ongoing series of white papers that we have published this year. The follows our last white paper, Physics as the New Firewall, how quantum principles themselves are shaping cybersecurity. And at Wibu-Systems, they're continuing to integrate PQC into CodeMeter and working with partners like Infineon and SAP to build real deployable systems. It's all moving faster than people think.
Final question then. If you were briefing a European policymaker tomorrow, what's your message?
I'd say this. Regulation got us halfway. Now we need execution. Fund the migration programs, empower SMEs and coordinate standards so we don't fragment. And remember, sovereignty isn't about closing doors. It's about ensuring Europe's digital house has locks that can survive the quantum storm.
Beautifully said. So where can listeners get their hands on the white paper?
You can download Sovereign by Design, How Europe Can Secure Its Digital Future in the Post-Quantum Age, directly from thequantumspace.org. It's free to access, produced in partnership with Wibu-Systems, and includes the full InnoDays Roundtable transcript.
Perfect. Steve Atkins, publisher and editor of The Quantum Space and mediator of the InnoDays Roundtable. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Anna. Always a pleasure. And let's hope Brussels is listening.
Indeed. That's it for Episode 9, A Cryptopocalypse in Brussels, part of the Quantum Space podcast, Innovating Trust. You can find the full white paper, transcripts, and more episodes at thequantumspace.org. I'm Anna Keller. Thanks for listening. And remember, trust isn't a policy, it's an architecture.
This was Innovating Trust, a quantum space podcast edited and produced by Crown Communications.